Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be taking you through a comparison video between Hot Wheels Regular and Hot Wheels Elite. Now the Hot Wheels Elite model is the Ferrari 250 California Spyder in black, and the Hot Wheels Regular model is the Ferrari F430 Spyder. Now, Hot Wheels make some fantastic Ferrari models, regardless if you go for the regular version or the elite version, and I honestly think they provide great value for money as well, especially if you're collecting predominantly Ferraris. I would definitely recommend to consider Hot Wheels in your collection when you're buying them. So I'm going to take you through the main differences between the regular and the elite version. And before I start the video, I will say there's about a £50–60 price difference between the regular and the elite version. But I think the details that Hot Wheels put in their elite and sometimes in their super elite models does justify the price difference quite substantially. So I think let's start off with the regular version first. So the Ferrari 430 Spyder in red, I think it looks absolutely phenomenal. I do like the Ferrari F430. So now that we've got the F430 on the turntable, I'm just going to take you through some of the different compartments in the model and take you through the level of detail that Hot Wheels have put into this model. Now, looking around the model, it looks adequate enough. There's not a lot of detail on the exterior, but it does look good enough for the money that this model is worth and the money that it's on market for. I think it looks absolutely fine. You don't really notice any of the smaller details that are missing compared to the Elite or some other manufacturers. From a distance, it looks pretty spot on from the real car, but the main differences is when you start to look up close to the model. So, taking you through some of the different compartments, starting off at the front of the model, you can see these here, the intakes at the bottom, are not mesh, they are just plastic in this look-alike mesh pattern. There's no mesh in the grills whatsoever. Now this is pretty, you know this when you pay for it, so it's not criticism, I'm just pointing out the different levels of detail that Hot Wheels go to on their regular compared to their elite models. The badge is just a sticker. It sits in this indent on the bonnet, so it does look flush, but it is just a sticker. The bonnet as well is done. It's okay. It's just plastic in here. There's no carpet or other materials that the elite version uses, and there's nothing in there. There's no detail. There's no anything in there from Hot Wheels. It's just an empty space for a bonnet, so not much in there to look at. So coming around the model, the wheels are done. I think they look good, but I'm sure they're not very realistic. The calipers have got some detail on as well, which is nice, and the whole wheel looks okay as well. Doesn't stand out, but it doesn't look too bad. If I open the door as well, this is a fully opening die-cast model as well, which is good. And take a look inside the interior. As you can see, it's got the tan a crema interior over the red paintwork. There is some level of detail in there. Obviously the steering wheel's got the Manantino, the start-stop button, the paddles on the left and the right, the handbrake, and some other controls in there. You've also got the radio and some other controls. I say overall in the interior it's about a 6 out of 10, considering that the value of this model is not very high. Don't expect it to have all the expensive materials in like the Elite or some other manufacturers. So coming round the back of the model, now I think the back of the model, as you can see, absolutely fine. I think there's a lot more detail here compared to the front. You can see the diffuser's at the bottom of the car. Now this, like the front, there's no mesh in there whatsoever. It's just a pattern on the plastic. There's no cooling mesh or anything like the Elite version has, or MR or BBR models. But then again, as I said, those are in a different price league anyway. Same with up here, it's just plastic. But again, it looks okay from a distance, so you won't notice these differences if you have it in a display case and you look at it at far. At first, you won't notice any of the differences. So the engine bay, I think it's actually done quite nicely for the money. Sometimes doesn't stay open all the time, but there you go. I think it looks fine. There's enough detail in there to please most people. If you're not very serious collectors, I don't think you can criticize too much about that. There is sufficient detail in that engine bay for the price of this model, and I think Hot Wheels have done a great job on that. I can't complain with the amount of detail in the engine. I think it looks good, and I think with the engine shut, you can see just about enough there, which looks really nice. I'd always liked the Ferrari F430, so this was one of my first ever model cars. So I've had this model for over 10 years, and I really like it. So that's a look on the regular Hot Wheels models. I have quite a few of these. I do recommend them because they're not very expensive and I think they're good value for money. Also the interior as well is missing carpets and other finishes that I'll show you in a minute. That's on the Elite, but for $30–40, can you go much better than this for the money? I don't think so if you want a Ferrari in the collection. I think overall it's probably sits for me around a 6 out of 10 if you consider the price of the model. It's pretty good. I've always recommended Hot Wheels. So now that we've had a look at the regular version, we'll take a look at the Elite version and we will point out some of the main differences. So now that we've got the Hot Wheels Elite version on the table, on the turntable, we'll take a look through this model and see the main differences that you pay for and what actually justifies a $50–60 difference between the two models. So we have an old Ferrari, a 1960 Ferrari, I believe, 250 California Spyder, probably one of the most expensive cars in the world. And I've always loved old Ferraris from the 1950s and the 1960s, so I thought I would add this one to my Hot Wheels collection. Now, starting off at the front of the model, compared to the F430, you can see a bit more detail here. The grills here are actual grills. they're not plastic with a grill pattern on it. The lights are done very nicely. I think they look quite realistic. The badge again is just a sticker. It's not embossed or doesn't stick out off the paintwork like some of the other manufacturers like MR or BBR, but I still think it looks fine as well. And the overall front of the car I think is done very nicely. Now looking inside the engine bay, this is where some of the main differences occur. The overall finish and feel of the model as well, it feels a lot heavier and it feels a lot more secure when you're opening up different compartments. And just take a look in this engine bay, you can see a lot more detail in here compared to the regular Hot Wheels version. Now this is a V12 engine in this car, and you can see various different hoses and wires and other bits in here compared to the regular version. And I think that looks really nice, and you can even see the mesh in the air intake on the bonnet on the left hand side. There is just another step up in detail on the Elite versions that some people may not consider when they're buying Hot Wheels Elite or Hot Wheels regular. So I think it's worth the money. It's not an awful lot of money more, but it does add that extra level of detail. Now let's open the doors up, get a look in the interior. Now first of all, you can see the red carpets on the footwell of the driver and the passenger. That was missing from the regular version. Also the seats done in leather, that's not plastic. And I think overall the quality of the materials used in the Elite version are slightly better than the regular version, and a lot more detail in the interior as well overall. So there is a justification in the price difference. You do get more for your money, and I would recommend a Hot Wheels Elite model in the collection. So if I open up the boot with my key, so coming around to the boot, now you can see an awful lot more detail compared to the regular version, especially in here. So the boot is lined in this carpet material. You can see the spare wheel in there as well, and that's secured with the belt as well here. So overall there's a lot more detail in the boot compared to the regular version. This is the fuel filler cap here, fuel filler pipeline that runs down. I'm not sure if you can actually see the carpet here as well. So overall the materials used in the Elite version are a lot better than the regular version, as expected, but it's nice to just point out all the various different details that you get for your money when you buy a Elite version over a regular version. I've had this model for well over 10 years in my collection, and it still looks nice, and it's not broken bits or anything. The wipers have come away from the screen a bit, but for the time that I've had this model, those things are kind of expected over a while. But that is the Elite version, so I hope I've pointed out some of the details that you get in the Elite compared to the regular, and let me know So we've had a look at the regular Hot Wheels model and the Elite Hot Wheels model, and I've pointed out some of the various differences that you get between these two models. And obviously the Elite version is way better than the regular version, but there's nothing wrong with the regular version still. It's good value for money, adequate detail in the model, it looks okay from far. You'd have to be a really serious collector to notice all of the little details on the model that doesn't make it up to standard or on par with the Elite, with Hot Wheels Elite or other manufacturers. But if you're just starting out in model car collecting, highly recommend regular Hot Wheels. They're cheap, or cheaper than most models. They look good, they have adequate detail, and overall you can't really go wrong with Hot Wheels models. Now if you buy a Hot Wheels Elite model, as you've seen, there's a lot more detail in the model. It's around $40, $50, $60 more expensive, but overall it's still a good buy, and I would recommend Hot Wheels Elite and Super Elite. I don't have any Super Elite models, but I would recommend having Hot Wheels in your collection. So let me know in the comments. I know this is a bit of a different video compared to all the high-end model cars that I normally do and do reviews on, but I think it's good to look at model car collecting from a different price perspective. Not all collectors can afford to buy MRs, BBRs, amalgams, auto art signature models, and I just wanted to highlight that collecting Hot Wheels and Baragos and Maidstone models are absolutely fine, and you can still yield a good collection of cheaper model cars, and many people won't know the difference between a Hot Wheels and a BBR model if they're side by side and they're looking at it from a distance. So let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more different comparison videos on the channel, and if you have any Hot Wheels in your collection. And yeah, and I'll see you next time, probably tomorrow, for another in-depth review on the normal content, hypercars, supercars by MR and BBR, back on the channel soon. Until then, see ya.